Hello, Madison County. This is a new video segment called Ask the Superintendent, where we do just that, using your questions from social media, emails, and talking to you around town. I'm here with Superintendent Austin Brown and Assistant Superintendent Sean Brewer. So, Mr. Brown, this video series is something you really wanted to do.
Yes, absolutely, Rick. It's something that communication is such an important part of what we do. And oftentimes we have a lot of questions, and they can come at a volume to where it's difficult to be able to speak individually with every single person in the district that has questions. But it really is important to us that we can at least engage in this way to be able to answer some of those questions and provide some feedback to some of the things that our community members are wanting to know and hear from us.
So this first segment is going to be a little longer than a normal Ask the Superintendent video because we wanted to address the many questions that have come from the new attendance law that was recently passed.
Yes, sir. Obviously, as we've started off this first couple of weeks of school, while it has not been the only question that we have been asked, it has certainly been the hottest topic. And so, yes, it's very important to us that we be sure that we're communicating in the best way we can the heart of this law, the spirit of the law, the letter of the law, and the way in which we plan to apply it. And yes, Mr. Brewer has spent a lot of time digging into the teeth of the law, and so he has been very helpful, and that's why he's here joining us today to help to maybe clarify some of these questions.
So a law essentially has two parts, its heart and its teeth. The heart is the underlying intent and that human connection. So what is the heart of this new attendance law, and why was it changed?
The heart of the law I can speak to because it actually fits perfectly into the challenge that I've issued to everyone as we've started this year off, and that is to prioritize the importance of being present. And so in that respect, I do believe that the law was created to have people be more mindful about how important it is to be at school and how that can impact the results that you achieve while at school. And we believe that. And we are going to continue. We've always felt like it was important to be at school. We did not need this law to tell us we needed to prioritize presence at school. But I firmly believe that's the heart of the law, and that's the way we're approaching it. And any way that we can join together to ensure that our parents and students understand how important it is to be here and how much that can impact the overall experience all the way up to the results of certain things. That's really what's at the heart of this, and we do believe in that.
I think that the legislature and our educational leadership across the state have realized and recognized what is not only a regional or state trend, but a national trend since our pandemic has come and gone, is the deterioration in the attendance rate. And it is lower in mass all across not only our state, but again, our nation. And there's no substitute that can be done at an adequate level for being in a class with a certified and qualified teacher and bringing that human expertise, interacting with students. And so that missed time is critical. It can't be recreated at that level. And so our students and our kids are missing out at a higher rate than as before. And we've had school attendance laws in place forever. But I think this is a legislature reacting to that and addressing that and bringing the importance of being at school at a higher level than we're seeing now.
The teeth of a law is how accountability is maintained and how it's enforced. I think this is what has generated the most questions regarding the new attendance law.
The state law has definitions and limits for attendance. It has categories of approved absences. It has excused absences and it has unlawful absences. And so there are different categories, and then there are numbers associated with that category. And let me say, as I begin this discussion on this graphic, this is not done to be punitive and to have an approach that sometimes students are not going to need to miss school. They will. there will be appropriate times when that is going to be needed due to sickness, due to doctor's appointments, dentist appointments, court appointments. Sometimes we know there are weddings, and unfortunately there are funerals, and there are different things that are appropriately addressed in the law as excused absences. The purpose of this law is to really take a hard look and a sooner or a quicker look for students who have unexcused absences, which are unlawful absences, that a parent is not validating where that student is, they're just missing school, and or excessive parent absences that are not related to medical or other conditions. And then sort of this guidance was built by MDE based off the law to help districts navigate through this. And so you start with 3 parent excuses, and so those parent excuses can be for any reason. Get those submitted in, and those are excused absences. Per semester, you have 2 more absences based on that law that fit under the first 5. Those 2 can be any combination of a number of things. I think there are several categories that the law spells out. Those are, of course, again, doctor's excuses, dentist excuses, court appointments. They are planned family trips that are appropriately reviewed by school level superintendent designees that have discretionary authority to approve those as excused absences. We don't want students to come to school who are gravely ill and sick. That is actually against our overall general attendance policy. And we want to work with our families on that. So you go from 3 to 5. After 5 in a semester, ordinary parent absences will then be considered unexcused or unlawful absences. But you have to accrue 5 more of those before you move into the truancy. And so if you'll look at our graphic, we start at 3, then we go to 5, and then you've got to go 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of either completely unexcused with no parent excuse or just a basic parent excuse to engage the first level of notification and enforcement on that 5th absence. At that time, we're going to work with parents. We're going to work with students. We're going to have conferences. There's going to be notifications that come through our systems that are encouraging students to come to work and that are offering support if there are issues that are in the way that are hindering that student's ability to come to school. This does not apply to a student that has an ongoing medical situation, or that has a special case that maybe has an IEP or a 504 that has special accommodations. Those will live outside and be approved as excused absence. So please don't fret those. We will work through that. And then a student needs to gather 3 more unlawful absences to reach that first criteria of 8 unlawful or unexcused absences before the school attendance officer even knows their name. And so that will go to them at that point. And then that starts to continue as students accumulate more. Then they get to 12, then they get to 15. And this is 15 unlawful, unexcused absences. These are not that we have a wedding. We submitted this beforehand to our schools. The principal or designee view that and excuse that. That is not an unlawful, unexcused absence. And so it takes a lot of absences to get to these higher levels of truancy. And if we're going to be honest about that, students that are missing that much, that don't have appropriate reasons, probably do need our attention. And they need the support of not only our school through a tier process, but also our court backing to say we need to support these students because they need to be in school and they don't have valid reasons not to be here. And that's a good thing. That's an appropriate thing. So work with your principal, work with your school, communicate. This is not something to be nervous or fretful about. Now, I'll say finally on that, if you can figure out a way not to miss school, please don't. If you can plan outside of that, please don't. But we're working to come into compliance with this law. It's not going to be an immediate over thing. We're all working through this process, your school, our district, all across the state, and we're moving to a good place. And we realize it's going to take some time. Some of you have made some plans based on how attendance has been held in the past. We're going to work through those, and we're going to get to the other side. And so looking at the heart of it, it's a good thing. looking at the teeth of it. Well, here are the numbers, and you can see what they are. But they're not there to frighten you. They're there to notify you.
He did not even give the all-inclusive list of reasons why the superintendent can excuse absences when given the opportunity. And I think this is one of the biggest pieces too, where we need help from our community, is that by letting us know why your student is going to be absent, so that it gives us an opportunity to look at that and review it. And then this first year, I will be honest, Sean and myself and all of our administration and even our school board, we have determined that while it is very important to us that we work to be in compliance with this law, but since this did come at a time in which we know that a lot of our people had already had some things scheduled, the flexibility or the discretion that has been given to the superintendent, we are absolutely going to use that to make sure that the people that Sean alluded to earlier who might need some attention, we're going to make sure that that's not it, that it feels very normal in terms of the way that it has been. So I do want to also echo the fact that there will be some flexibility, some discretion there that's going to be afforded me as a superintendent that I will then afford to the principals. And I actually wanted to take some of the numbers that he just mentioned, and I wanted to kind of roll out perhaps a scenario that I know that I myself have been asked about. Let's say that for you have already excused for a semester your first 5. If your child then becomes sick, as Sean alluded to earlier, please do not send them to school. Please take them to the doctor and address whatever it is that they're ailing from. Get that doctor's note, bring that back to your principal, and if they miss 5 days or 12 days, I am going to allow the principals the discretion to, with that doctor's note, count those as excused, which means they do not become the unlawful absences that Sean was referencing earlier, which means those will not be reported to the attendance officer or the courts. So I wanted to kind of give that example of what many of our people I know are wondering about what could happen. As long as you're making us aware and working with us about what it is, it allows me to work with the principals to look at these on an individual basis and determine whether we feel like this is something where it's just a situation where someone doesn't feel like it's important to send their kid to school and they don't care, or they don't send their kid to school and they don't bother to even tell us why, versus someone who has a situation where their particular absences may not quite fit within the numbers established in this law, but it allows us to look at those individually, and we will absolutely work with our parents to make sure that we are keeping them as well as ourselves in compliance with the law. And I will use that discretion and grant a lot of that discretion to our principals when we are aware and can tie it to some of those things that the law does say that we can in terms of excusing particular absences.
When it comes to getting discretion from the superintendent, who should people contact when they want to have their situation reviewed?
Excellent question. And they need to do that in the same manner that they have always been doing that since their kids have been in school, and that is through the attendance protocols at their school. So they would just contact their school. They would make the school aware in whatever manner that they've always been asked to make the school aware that their child needs to be absent and for this reason. And then the principals will take it from there, because as I mentioned earlier, I have already communicated to them in which instances, and depending on what category those absences fall in, where they do not even have to reach out to me in order to exercise the discretion to go ahead and excuse those. But if they will just simply send that to the principal through the normal channel, then if the principal has a question about whether or not he or she has the authority to excuse that, then they will reach out to my office. That's where I will grant them the authority to use that discretion or not.
There is some newness to this process. So what should parents expect when they begin to meet the thresholds of this new attendance law?
So as most of our schools have done across a very long period of time, parents expect a call if your student's not at school, expect a communication. That's not us trying to be in your business. We understand that you know that your student is home. You should, and if you don't, you want to know, right? And so that's a good thing, but it's keeping us in touch with you. Hey, we realize your child's not here. We look forward to them coming back. Now, when you get to 3 absences, right? So 3 absences in a semester. At that point, expect a letter from us, whether it's email or a mailed letter, a hard copy letter. And that's required by law. And we are just notifying you that, hey, your child has 3 absences now. It doesn't mean they're unlawful. They're lawful if you send a note. They're lawful if it's been a doctor's excuse. But we're required to let you know at 3. And then when we get to 5, we'll let you know again with another letter. Hey, that's increased. That number has. We'll offer support if there is a support that's needed. Doesn't mean those are unlawful, but it means we're following a protocol. Then, if we start unlawful absences or we have unlawful absences, when we get to 5 more of those and you've reached the 5th unlawful absence, you'll again receive notice from us, which is going to be in addition to a letter and a communication, a hard communication, whether that's email or mail. And that's going to also include phone calls. And that's going to include outreach from our school personnel who are working on students' attendance needs. And so we'll have teams together for that, that view that and try to encourage and find ways for students to come to school and know that that's important for them to be there. And again, we're coming in compliance. We, in fact, won't send a student to truancy even at 8 unlawful absences until we have verified that we followed a process and we have looked for ways to support that student. Again, that's also written into process and into MDE's guidance to do that. So those steps will be in place. Please don't panic if you get a letter that your student's been out 3 days. That's part of the required process. Doesn't mean anybody's in trouble. Now, once again, as I said before, we start to get 8, 12, 15 unexcused, unlawful absences. We have a student in a family that probably needs attention, and we're going to do what's required for those cases for sure, which will be a letter plus. But for the others, that's what you should expect in the process. Now, you can help us in that process by making sure you get that parent note in, making sure you get that doctor note in. We'd like those in within 2 days of the student's return. That's what our handbook says. That makes the policy work well. That keeps you from getting a letter you don't want to get, and it keeps us from having to send it. So help us help you by getting those in a timely manner. And then, you know what, relax and enjoy your school year.
I think what I would add in closing would be just that I hope that our parents would understand that, as I said at the outset, this to us is about prioritizing presence. And so we intend to utilize this law to do just that. We do not intend to use this as a punitive measure unless we feel as if it's one of those situations that Sean alluded to earlier that perhaps needs that type of approach. But the only way that we will get there is if we get an indication that someone either A, is not wanting to even bother communicating with us about why their students are missing school, preferably that happening on the front end so it can go through the proper review. But even on the back end, sending them back without the notice 2 days later that Sean alluded to earlier, those would be the scenarios where if those types of unlawful absences added up, that we might have to use this as a punitive tool, but that is not the way we are approaching this. We want to work with our communities to know why their students are needing legitimately excused absences, and then we will work with them to make sure they are excused in a way in which this law will have no punitive effect on them.
Just to clarify, any other comments or releases that have indicated that there's a big legal concern that parents should have about fines and or jail time at a certain point, I would just say that understand, obviously, that's in the hands of the courts. And there is a process that we've described through this video that is lengthy, that has lots of steps involved. And to reach that level, there's going to be, like I said, a number of unlawful absences that occur. And again, schools are going to comply with the law, and we're certainly going to do that. This is not something that schools decided in policy, but we're complying with that, and we'll work with our partners in our court system, our school attendance officers, to appropriately report those who meets those thresholds. And then it'll be up to the court and the school attendance officers about what action is taken from that point going forward.
We hope this video was informative, and we welcome more questions as you think of them. Again, this installment was a little bit longer than a normal Ask Your Superintendent video, but we thought it was important to cover all of this information. In the future, stay tuned to social media where you can find ways to ask more questions in upcoming installments of Ask the Superintendent. Thanks for watching.